It started the moment I found that old book in my grandfather's attic. He was a quiet man, never spoke much about his past, and when he died, I inherited his house. The attic was full of dust and cobwebs, forgotten things piled like relics of a forgotten life. The book was leather-bound, ancient, with a symbol on the cover that looked like a twisted serpent eating its own tail. I opened it and felt a chill creep up my spine, but curiosity pushed me on. The pages were filled with strange symbols, rituals, and a single prayer that promised to summon the Keeper of Shadows, a being who could grant any desire. I laughed it off as nonsense, but morbid curiosity is a strange thing, and in the cold silence of my empty house, I recited the prayer. At first, nothing happened. The house stayed still, the night quiet except for the creaks of old wood. But then the air shifted. The temperature dropped so low I could see my breath. A whisper filled the room, a voice like gravel and fire.
Who calls me?
I froze. The shadows seemed to gather, twisting into a tall figure cloaked in darkness. His eyes burned red, glowing coals beneath a hooded face I could barely see. His smile was cruel, a slash of white teeth that promised pain and deceit.
You summoned me. What do you seek?
He said, voice like smoke curling through the room. I wanted to scream but couldn't find my voice. Instead, I whispered, "Help me, fix my life." He chuckled.
Your soul for your wish?
I hesitated. This was a fairy tale. No one really believed in deals with the devil, but what choice did I have? I was drowning in failure and grief. I nodded. The figure extended a hand, icy cold, and touched my forehead. I felt fire spread through me, burning away fear and doubt. Suddenly, my life changed. The next morning, I found a job offer waiting for me. Money came easy. Friends returned, smiling and warm. My ex-wife called asking if I wanted to meet up. My son, that I hadn't spoken to for months, invited me on a trip. Everything was perfect, too perfect. I learned, though, that perfection has a price. The first sign was the mark, a black circular symbol burning at the top of my right arm. I hid it with sleeves, but it pulsed beneath my skin, growing darker and more alive. It throbbed in the quiet moments like a heartbeat. Then came the whispers. At first, faint murmurs in the silence of my apartment just beyond hearing, like a conversation in another room. I'd strain to listen, but the words never came clearly. As days passed, they grew louder, menacing. A cold voice that seeped into my mind when I was alone.
You belong to me.
I started losing time. Minutes, hours unaccounted for. I'd wake in strange places in my own home, disoriented and heart-pounding. Shadows seemed to twist at the corners of my vision, creeping closer every day. Sleep was no refuge. The dreams were a labyrinth of fire and darkness, endless corridors dripping with shadow. The man was always there, his eyes glowing red embers. He whispered promises and threats, weaving dread into my waking thoughts. One night, I woke to find him sitting on the edge of my bed, watching me. His skin was pale and almost translucent, his veins black as ink beneath.
Soon, the debt will be paid,
he said softly. I begged for mercy, for a way out, but he only laughed, a sound like shattered glass.
Contracts are eternal. You called me. You belong to me.
Friends and family drifted away, terrified of the hollow man I was becoming. I was losing myself, my mind fraying, torn between reality and nightmare. One evening, I found the book open on my kitchen table, pages flipping despite the still air. The symbols glowed faintly in the dim light. Desperation drove me to search for a way to break the pact. I scoured the book, finding rituals to banish spirits and prayers for protection. I tried them all, burning candles, drawing circles of salt, reciting incantations until my voice was hoarse. But nothing worked. The devil's hold was unbreakable. Then came the nights of watching. I would sit in the dark, staring into the mirror, waiting for him to appear. Sometimes, just when I was about to give up, I'd see a flicker, red eyes blazing from the glass. He would grin and disappear, leaving me shaking, sweat cold on my skin. The mark on my shoulder spread, creeping down my arm like a living thing, black tendrils pulsing beneath the flesh. The pain was constant, a reminder that I was marked. The devil came not as a shadow, but as a man seated at my kitchen table, sipping tea as if we were old friends. His smile was cruel and patient.
Why fight what you cannot change? Your soul is mine. Embrace it.
I stood trembling. There has to be a way out. He leaned forward, eyes burning.
There is.
My heart stopped as he whispered the price. It was worse than I imagined. A sacrifice of what I loved most, my son. I refused, anger flaring. That night, I dreamed of fire engulfing my home, of my screams swallowed by darkness. I woke choking on smoke that wasn't there, the smell of burning flesh lingering. I realized then that the deal was more than a contract. It was a sentence, and my time had run out. I should have known something was wrong the moment I found that old, cracked mirror in the basement. I had an apartment in the top floor of my uncle's house, and I was helping to clear out his property after he passed. It was a ramshackle, forgotten place at the edge of town, filled with peeling wallpaper, broken furniture, and the stale smell of years left to rot. The basement was a tomb of dust and shadows. It was colder down there than the rest of the house, the kind of cold that sinks into your bones and refuses to leave. Among the piles of broken toys and forgotten junk, I spotted it, an old mirror, leaning against a rotting wooden crate. The frame was twisted, darkened by mold and age, its surface cracked and cloudy. But what caught my eye was the way the glass seemed to drink in the weak light, swallowing it instead of reflecting. Without thinking, I hauled it upstairs to my apartment, propping it in the corner of my living room. The mirror looked out of place, ancient and foreboding in my small modern space. That was it. All began. At first, it was subtle, a flicker of movement at the edge of vision, shadows dancing where none should be. I'd wake with a start, heart pounding, convinced I'd heard footsteps in an empty hallway or whispered voices in the dark. Every night, the same man appeared, a figure dressed in black, impossibly tall and thin, with eyes that glowed like molten embers. His face was a mask of shadows, but his smile was carved from cruelty, stretched wide and sharp like a predator's gnawn. His fingers ended in long, claw-like nails that scraped the air with a sound like dry bones. He didn't say anything, just watched me, waiting. One night, I woke gasping, the room freezing around me. My eyes darted to the mirror, and I swear its surface rippled like water disturbed by a stone. The man stepped out of the glass, slow and deliberate. His skin was deathly pale, almost translucent, veins black as night running beneath. His eyes burned with ancient hatred, and his smile twisted wider than before.
"You invited me in. I'm here to collect,"
he said, his voice a rasp like grinding stone. I tried to run, but my legs betrayed me. I fell to my knees, begging for mercy, for a way out, but his laugh was cold and merciless, shattering everything inside me.
"Mercy isn't mine to give. You made the deal long ago."
That's when memories flooded back, fragments I'd buried deep beneath layers of denial. A man in a black suit visiting my childhood home, his face hidden in shadow. Whispers behind closed doors, a silver coin pressed into my father's hand. The coin had a strange symbol etched into its surface, twisted curling lines like the mark on the mirror's frame. I'd laughed it off as a child's fantasy, but now I knew better. The devil had been waiting, watching all these years, patient, calculating, waiting for the moment I was weak enough to claim. From that night on, I was never alone. The man haunted me in every shadow. I caught glimpses of him in reflective surfaces, a quick flash of burning eyes in the window, a flicker of that cruel smile in a spoon's curve. Things moved on their own. Doors slammed, lights flickered, cold spots appeared in rooms where I stood alone. And then the mark appeared, an ugly, twisted mark, bearing 3 6s on my wrist, burning like a brand, pulsating with heat beneath the skin. I tried to fight back. I smashed the mirror into shards and scattered them in the trash. I threw the silver coin into the river, watching it sink beneath dark waters. I burned every object tied to that cursed night. Old letters, photographs, the coins box. But nothing worked. The man returned, more real than ever, standing across the street in broad daylight, his eyes fixed on me, his smile stretching impossibly wide.
"You belong to me,"
He said, voice like a death knell. Panic engulfed me. I was trapped in a waking nightmare I couldn't escape. I sought help from priests, psychics, anyone who might save me, but they all recoiled in fear or dismissed me as insane. One priest told me, "The devil's hold is a contract, written in blood and soul. Only he can release it." Days blurred into nights. Sleep became a battlefield. I saw him everywhere, in crowds, in mirrors, in the corner of my eyes. The mark on my wrist burned relentlessly, spreading like black vines up my arm. One night, he came close enough to whisper in my ear, his breath cold and rotten.
"Accept your place, or watch everything you love burn."
I realized then there was no escape, no bargain, and no mercy. I am completely his now, and I must do what he commands. I never believed in the devil. Not really. I thought it was all superstition, something parents told their kids to keep them in line. But last fall, I learned the truth in a way no one should have to. It started with something small, almost imperceptible. One morning, while washing my face, I noticed a faint black mark on the inside of my left wrist. I rubbed at it, thinking it was just dirt, but it didn't come off. Instead, it looked more like a tattoo, thin, curling lines forming a shape I couldn't quite place. It reminded me of an S twisted back on itself. I hadn't gotten a tattoo. I don't even like needles. That day, everything began to change. The light in my apartment felt colder, less welcoming. Shadows clung to corners as if afraid to leave. When I caught my reflection in the bathroom mirror, it blinked once after I did, twice, then didn't blink at all. I spun around. There was nothing, just the empty room, staring back. A cold pressure settled deep in my chest, heavy and insistent, like a weight pressing down on my lungs. My heart pounded with an erratic rhythm I couldn't calm. The tattoo pulsed beneath my skin, a slow throb growing warmer by the hour. At work, I was a ghost. Conversations drifted past me without meaning. I tripped over my own feet, spilled coffee on my shirt, forgot passwords to systems I used daily. People whispered behind my back. When I asked, no one answered. That night, exhaustion finally pulled me under. But the dreams came, terrifying and vivid. A man appeared, impossibly tall and thin, wearing a suit blacker than the void. His eyes burned like coals, and his smile stretched far too wide, a grin that threatened to split his face apart. His fingers were claws, long and sharp, scraping the air.
You belong to me now.
Voice like dry leaves scratching across stone. I woke, screaming, drenched in sweat, the tattoo burning like it was branded into me with fire. The next morning, I found a small black book waiting on my doorstep. It had no title, only the twisted S on its cover, matching the tattoo on my wrist. The pages inside were filled with names, dates, and places in a spidery, ancient script. My name was first, written larger than the others. Desperation drove me to a priest. When I showed him the book, his face drained of color. "This is no ordinary book," he said, voice shaking. "It's a contract. You've been marked, signed in blood by the devil himself." From that day on, my world fell apart. Those I cared for began to suffer. My sister twisted her ankle badly in what should have been a minor stumble. My closest friend lost his job unexpectedly. My dog disappeared, vanished without a trace. Each time, the tattoo burned hotter, like it was feeding on their pain and suffering. I fought back. I threw the book into the fireplace. The pages curled, blackened, but the book reappeared the next morning, lying open on my kitchen table. I cut at the tattoo with a razor, blood flowing freely, but the wound healed before my eyes, darker, sharper, more defined. I prayed until my voice broke, begged for mercy in every language I knew and didn't know, but mercy never came. Last night, the man returned, stepping out of the shadows inside my apartment. His smile was wider, more terrifying than before. His eyes glowed like embers, burning with a cruel, ancient hunger.
You cannot run,
He said, his voice a cruel melody that echoed in my bones. I begged. "Please," I whispered, "have mercy." He laughed. It was a sound like bones snapping, dry and cruel.
Mercy isn't mine to give, but I can offer a choice.
"Anything," I said, trembling.
Your soul or theirs.
I looked at my shaking hands, thought of the people I love, the ones slipping away from me like smoke through my fingers. I understood then the true cost. I made my choice. Now, at night, I hear their screams. Their voices call out to me from the darkness, whispers of fear, of pain, of helplessness. I sold their souls. Sometimes, I see the man lurking in the corner of my vision, his smile growing wider, his eyes burning brighter. And that man looks like me. I always thought the devil would arrive with fanfare. Trumpets, fire, maybe a flash of red. Turns out he prefers to knock. It was a Wednesday night in late October. The air in my apartment was stale, carrying the faint sourness of spilled whiskey and neglected laundry. I'd been staring at the wall for an hour, tracing the faint cracks in the paint, until they seemed to form shapes, faces mainly. My job was hanging by a thread. My marriage was already gone. I'd been spending more time in silence lately, just listening to the ticking of the old kitchen clock, waiting for something to happen. That's when I heard it. 3 knocks on my front door. Not loud, not timid, just certain. I opened it, expecting a neighbor or maybe some drunk who'd gotten the wrong apartment. Instead, there was a man in a black suit standing perfectly still in the hallway. His skin was the color of cold ash. His hair slicked so tight against his skull it looked like it had been painted on. His smile was wrong, too wide, too fixed.
You called,
He said. I hadn't spoken a word, but I knew exactly what he meant. For weeks I'd been muttering things under my breath, half pleas, half threats, about how I'd give anything to be free of the heaviness in my chest. How I'd trade whatever I had left for just one day without feeling like I was drowning. I'd said it like a joke, but maybe jokes carry further than we think. I stepped aside without meaning to, and he entered. His shoes made no sound on the floor. I noticed something else. He didn't cast a shadow. We sat at my kitchen table. He took the bottle from my hand and poured 2 glasses. I hadn't seen him bring one with him, but there it was. The amber liquid didn't ripple when it hit the glass.
I can give you what you want,
He said. His voice was like dry leaves rubbing together.
but there's a cost.
I forced a laugh, because that's what you do when something scares you so deeply you can't admit it. My soul? I asked. His grin widened.
You're behind on payments already.
I frowned. What the hell does that mean? He reached into his suit and pulled out a small, leather-bound ledger. When he opened it, my name was printed in elegant ink at the top. Below it was a long, meticulous list. Dates and events. Most I recognized, some I didn't. Times I'd lied to protect myself. Times I'd wished harm on others. Times I'd chosen the easy way instead of the right one. The entries stretched back before my earliest memory.
You were marked before you breathed your first breath. I've been watching the interest grow.
I felt a heat building in the room. The corners of the kitchen seemed darker, and the air thickened until every breath was an effort. I felt that I should stand, tell him to leave, maybe even pray. But I didn't. I just sat there, gripping the edge of the table hard enough for my knuckles to ache. What happens if I don't pay? I asked. His smile deepened.
Then I'll collect in ways that echo.
The shadows in the corners leaned toward us, as though they were listening. My skin prickled, and I realized my legs were shaking.
You want relief? I'll grant it. You'll wake tomorrow without pain, without fear. But each night after, something will visit. Not me. Something that listens when I call. It will come closer each time. You can keep your peace until it reaches you.
How long? My voice cracked. He tilted his head, pretending to consider.
Depends how fast you walk toward it.
I should have refused. I should have screamed. But I thought of the emptiness in my chest, the way every day felt like dragging a corpse uphill, and I nodded. He stood, buttoning his jacket.
It starts now.
The world blinked. That's the only way I can describe it. Like a single frame had been cut from reality. One moment he was there, the next, my kitchen was empty. And just like that, the heaviness in my chest was gone. I could breathe deeply. My mind was clear. It was like I'd been carrying a stone in my lungs, and it had been dissolved away. That night, I dreamed of a figure standing at the far end of a hallway. Tall, skinless, its head tilted unnaturally, like it was studying me. I woke with my heart pounding, but as soon as I saw the daylight through my blinds, the fear faded. The second night, it was closer. I could hear its wet breathing, the faint smack of lips that weren't quite human. By the third, it whispered in a language that scraped my bones from the inside. It's been 12 nights now. I no longer dream in places I know. The figure is always there. And last night, it was so close I could see my reflection in its teeth. I woke to find damp footprints leading from my bed to the window, prints that didn't match mine. I've stopped answering my phone. I've boarded the windows and unplugged every light. But it doesn't matter. Whenever I close my eyes, it's there. I think about his words every night. Depends how fast you walk toward it. I can't take much more. I know. Eventually, I will run toward it.